Hello and welcome everyone to this Parenting Tips webinar presented by YouROK. The topic for the webinar this evening is strategies for dealing with back to school challenges. And we are pleased to be joined by Neil D. Brown and Patrina Mack. I am going to run through and introduce the webinar. Then I'm going to turn it over to Patrina and Neil for the presentation. We'll run through the presentation, and if we have opportunity at the end, we'll have space and time as well for question and answers. So without further ado, to introduce your presenters this evening. Patrina Mack is CEO and founder of YouROK. She is a past board member of the Mental Research Institute. In 2017, she was honored as a Woman of Influence by the San Jose Business Journal. Prior to founding YouROK Corporation, Patrina founded Vision and Execution in 1999. V&E served its clients as interim sales, marketing, and product development support for global clients. Prior to that, she led the SaaS product development for Net Gravity, launching globally through IPO until being acquired by DoubleClick. And before that, she led new product initiatives domestically and internationally for Pactel Corporation through its spinoff and IPO to become AirTouch. Neil D. Brown, LCSW, is a psychotherapist, author, speaker, and behavioral health program consultant based in Santa Cruz, California. Trained in family therapy and now an author and trainer with extensive experience working with families with children and teens, Neil brings out-of-the-box solutions to the challenges clients are facing. Neil's approach empowers parents and their adolescent youth to put an end to destructive control battles for good. His book, Ending the Parent-Teen Control Battle, and his weekly podcast, Healthy Family Connections, illustrate these solutions. So thanks everyone again for being with us, and I will hand it over to Patrina.
Hi, everyone, and so glad that everyone is here to hear about Neil's tips for parenting. But first, a little bit about YouROK. It was inspired by my own lived experience helping my son navigate school and some of the challenges he had to deal with. So we ended up building a virtual digital mental health solution that really helps engage youth. K-Bro helps your kids learn effective emotional self-care while keeping you in the loop. We have a proprietary sentiment analysis that translates the authentic voice of our youth to provide the needed insights to parents, educators, and providers to identify who might be at risk before a crisis and make sure they get the help they need. Our YouROK parent subscription sends you a weekly update to let you know how your child is doing and where they might need some extra support, like school, family life, social life, or other stuff. K-Bro always protects the privacy of what kids share in the app, but we share just enough with you to help you engage constructively with your children. And if there's ever a cause for concern, you'll get an immediate email alert. Our solution was built by a team of experts, including psychologists, neuroscientists, social workers, artificial intelligence, global leaders, and an award-winning game designer, along with youth who informed what would make the app engaging. And we're happy to report that we piloted our solution with nearly 3,000 users to measure the effectiveness and proven that kids feel better when they play K-Bro. And on that note, I'll turn things over to Neil to lead us through our conversation on how you can deal with back to school challenges.
Thank you so much, Patrina. And I'm so glad to be here. As I was introduced to by my book, Ending the Parent-Teen Control Battle. Well, school is certainly a battlefield for control battles. And what I hope to be able to accomplish today is help parents find ways to help their children be successful and not have that major control battle. After all, folks are here not because things are easy, and they're not here because they're not worried about school. In fact, 60% of parents report that they're worried about their children's mental health. And so all these things are playing out. They were playing out before the pandemic. They're playing out now. In fact, I was having coffee with a pediatrician friend of mine who shared with me that it used to be that he'd have a line of kids and parents coming in with ear infections and doling out antibiotics, and now everyone's showing up with depression and anxiety. And here he is, a pediatrician, trying to figure out how he's gonna provide services for anxiety and depression. So that's everyone's challenged about how to be who they need to be and do what they need to do. So let's get started. Slide, please. Yeah, so what am I feeling as a parent? I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling worried. Maybe I'm feeling hopeful. But that's why I'm here. I'm really struggling and I'm looking for a little bit of help. So let's talk about how we can create a successful school year for your youth. And so next slide, please. In order for us to talk about a successful school year, we'll have to talk about what is success. What is it we want to accomplish? And I want to think about success or I want to ask you the question: would it make sense to you if success was our lives are less fraught, our youth is growing and developing? What if we have more positive interactions and better communication? What if we had really better experiences in our family? So I think how we define success is going to help us move forward and know what we're really trying to accomplish. Let's take another slide and talk about a whole kid approach. Now, our kids are going to do really well if they're connected, if they're confident, and if they are healthy. If they're connected, confident, and healthy, what's going to happen? They are going to be motivated, and when they're motivated, they're going to be trying, and when they're trying is when they're going to succeed. When they're not going to succeed is when their parents are trying and they're resisting. So what we want is a connected, confident, healthy kid. Now, what you're going to say to me is, Neil, if my kid could have self-esteem, if they could have confidence, I'd be over the moon. Of course. Could you give me some of that I could give my kid? And the answer is, well, not exactly. But what we can do is we can create an environment and we can speak with your teenager and we can connect with your teenager around the whole idea of that they're in a process of growing their self-esteem and growing their confidence. If we know that and they know that and we're taking steps in that direction, then things are going to begin to go well. If we're fighting over homework and I'm trying to get you to do your homework and all you're trying to do is resist my efforts, well, I could tell you that is an exercise in futility. It's going to use up all of a parent's bandwidth. It's not going to create mental health for your child. It's not going to create mental health for you. And it's exhausting, and that leads to parental burnout. So don't despair. We're going to talk about some of the things that we need to pay attention to with your youth, but don't despair that I'm going to give you a list of things you need to do, because we're also going to talk about some of those tools and some of the skills that will help you accomplish those things. But we have to go big, because if we go small, we're going to be in little control battles. Slide 6, please. Okay. So let's talk about your kid going to school. Going to school is one thing. Being involved in school is another. So if your youth is an athlete, if your youth is a musician, if your youth is interested in the performing arts or leadership or peer counseling, there's a role for your teen to play in the school. And when your youth is involved in school, when they're connected to something going on in the school, more than just showing up, sitting in class, getting their homework assignments, coming home, and avoiding doing it, when they go to school, if there's a role for them to play, if they're part of a group, if they're part of an activity, if they're involved, they're going to feel socially connected, they're going to feel important, they're going to feel wanted, they're going to look forward to being there. So kids need to engage the school community, not just show up and go home. Slide, please. Okay. I'm sorry about this. You've heard it 1,000 times, but indulge me, you're going to hear it 1,001. Exercise and nutrition have to be part of every successful person's lifestyle. That's just critical. In fact, eating in a healthy way can be the difference between depression, anxiety, and not performing well. It's documented that eating healthy is part of managing ADHD, autism spectrum, obsessive compulsive disorder, almost any neurological, emotional, or behavioral issue. The first line of treatment for anxiety and depression is exercise and nutrition. It's the difference is measurable in depression scores, and it's measurable in math performance. Kids that exercise before they go to math class will do better in math class than kids that don't. It's that simple. We are mammals, and we are designed to be in motion. We're not designed to sit in front of computer screens or sit in desk chairs. We are designed to be in motion. So given that we sit a lot and that we're looking at screens a lot, we need to balance that out with a lot of movement. Slide, please. So now let's talk about the other involvement that's so critical, and that is in home life, the routines of maintaining a home. The homes don't maintain themselves. You know that. It includes shopping, cooking, cleaning, laundry, yard work, home repairs, car washing, the whole ball of wax. There's no reason that kids can't be involved in all of those things. And there's lots of reasons that they should be. They need to learn the skills. We need their help. Being someone who helps out and is part of what's going on and is adding value, that's an important value for them to incorporate in their lives. Like if you're part of something, add value. It gives a message that they matter and that they're an important member of the family. And it builds connectedness and self-esteem and self-efficacy and confidence. So there's a lot of reasons for your kids to be involved in the home. Now, there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. Slide, please. Okay. Here's what we don't want to do. What we don't want to do is put up a chore list and then get upset when kids don't do their chores. No, it's not whose night is it to do the dishes. How about if everyone does the dishes after dinner? After all, there's so many things that are part of doing the dishes. There's putting away the leftovers. There's loading the dishwasher, pots and pans, clearing the counters, sweeping the floor. All these things are steps, and if we do those steps, instead of being angry, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, we can all be part of it. And while we're doing it, we're part of a community doing it together. So what if your youth is part of making dinner, doing some of the prep work, or even helping pick out a recipe that they're going to participate in? There's all kinds of cleaning, there's all kinds of vacuuming, dusting, all these things that have to get done. What if we do them as a group? What if we say, hey, we're all going to clean at this time, and here are the many things, and we play some music, and we goof around, and we have some fun doing it? What if there's a job to do, and we get our kids, and even our kids' friends involved in doing it? If it's painting the house, or prepping the house or cleaning the garage. We can do things in a way that it's part of a community and it's part of getting things done. Okay, so, and then of course there's all the other things that kids need to do, right? Cleaning their rooms. There's getting ready for school the next day. There's brushing teeth and hygiene and all these other things, laundry. So what we want to do is get all these things into the hopper for this is part of life, and these routines are just going to be taking place. Now, planning, next slide please, is key. We need to know who's going to do what and more or less when, and have a plan for doing it. If you've been getting your youth up in the morning and waking them up 5 times and then having them reluctantly getting up and going late and you're struggling with it, well, maybe this is a year that we could decide that's going to belong to them. Maybe they've hit another milestone, or we want to invite them to hit another milestone. Okay, so let's say we do that. And what happens? Well, maybe they get up and suddenly they can't find the lock for their bike. So now they're going nuts because now they can't find the lock, they can't take their bike, and then they're going to be late, and then they beg for you to take them to school. Well, maybe we let them go late. Maybe we take them and have a conversation about planning and helping them be more successful the next time. But what we want to do is get that plan in place. Maybe your teenager has ADHD or learning disabilities. Well, who's going to help them with their homework? If it's the parent, that's a challenge. But okay, what are the times they're going to do it? Or maybe it's going to be a coach, or maybe it's going to be a tutor. We have all these opportunities to think about and make a plan for, and get your kid involved in the planning of it. Let's go to the next slide. Now, how do we get our kid to cooperate with making a plan and participating in a plan? If I told my kid, hey, we're going to sit down and plan for the school year, they'll say, yeah, no way. I'm just going to go. What's the big deal? Well, we know that without plans, things are going to go crazy and be chaotic, and we're not going to be clear about what our standards are and our expectations are. So we have to get their cooperation. I'm kidding when I say we'll have to make them an offer they can't refuse. There's Marlon Brando as the great patriarch. But we actually are going to make them an offer they can't refuse. After all, they're in charge of their behavior. They manage their choices. They manage themselves, but we manage ourselves. So we're going to provide the structure, but we're going to say what the expectations are for their participation. And if they are unwilling to participate, we'll be patient, we'll be positive, we know it's a change, we know it's different, and privileges will come along as their participation comes along. So what we want is for them to be involved in the planning and in the execution against the planning. That's our expectation. And we'll be patient, and we'll be persistent, and we'll be positive, but we don't go forward with privileges until such a time as they are on board with doing their best in those areas of planning and execution against planning. So those are absolutely critical elements for how we're going to get our kids to cooperate. And cooperation and respect are 2 critical attitudinal shifts we want our kids to make. I know they're adolescents, so there's going to be eye rolling. There's going to be a certain amount of negativity that's going to come against parents. Parents, we're not going to take it personally. We know it's going to be there, but overall, we're going to look for cooperation and respectful engagement from our kids as part of the way in which they will earn privileges. Now, some kids are not too bad at managing responsibilities and learning from their mistakes. So some kids will stay up too late, feel really tired the next day, and realize staying up too late isn't working for them. And other kids are going to need that structure. They're going to need a parent to say, this is time to put your things away. This is time to put the lights out. This is the time to get ready, and that sort of thing, depending on their age and their temperament. So we'll provide that. Who is your kid? What do they need? And if they need it, we'll provide the structure. But what we need from them is the cooperation for that, and with an understanding that they're going to be growing their own executive function. As we're providing it for them over time, they'll be growing it for themselves. Slide, please. Okay. Well, this is all well and good, Neil, but my kid has anxiety and depression. How can I expect so much from them? How can I expect them to get up and get themselves to school and go to school and do well? We've already established that anxiety and depression are out of control, and that so many kids are suffering. Well, that is true. Kids are suffering with anxiety and depression. And yet, if we make them victims of anxiety, we make them victims of depression, then and look for an antidepressant or a doctor or a therapist to fix it, it's not going to get better. A doctor can help, a therapist can help, but it's only going to help when it's part of someone's effort to get better. So that's the message that we want to be able to give our kids. We want to be able to tell them, look, I understand this is what's going on. Let's get you the resources. And now we're going to be using those resources. So if the therapist says, well, here are some important things to think about: getting up at a certain time, making your bed, getting a routine going. What if they're saying you need to get some exercise every day? What if they say you need to slow down on the sugars and eat healthier foods? Then maybe we need to do those things in order to be part of you getting better. After all, the depression and the anxiety is with our youth, and if they're struggling, we can help them and we can resource them, but at the end of the day, it's their efforts and their commitment to their own mental health which is going to be what brings them along. So let's go to our next slide, please. So we can support them in lots of ways, and we can bring empathy to them, but we also have to challenge them and engage them in what they're going to do to get better. There are lots of things that we can do for depression. There's lots of things we can do for anxiety. Have we done our breathing exercises? Have we done our gratitudes? Have we done our writing of a healthy narrative for ourselves? And can we look at all those things that are excellent about who we are? And can we hang those up around the house and believe them? So there's lots of things that we can do for ourselves, and that's what's going to get us out. If you're here listening to this, I'm willing to bet that you've had anxiety and or depression at some point in your life. And you know that it doesn't go away on its own. It goes away, and it gets better when you engage life in the most productive of ways. So that's what we want. We want them to engage, and we want to engage them in a successful, in knowing that they are going to get better. It's a temporary state, and they can get through it, and they can get better when they do the work. All right, so let's go to another slide, and let's talk about this whole business of change, because we're talking about helping. We're going from a challenging situation that hasn't been working to a place that's going to be successful and is going to work. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, one thing we have to do is know that things are going to get better, that we believe that things are going to get better. And you're going to have to believe in yourself as a parent that your optimism and your vision of your youth's success is very powerful, and your positivity is very, very powerful. And those two things, having a vision of success with your youth, that they are in a process of growth and development, even at their most difficult or even their most oppositional times, that you have complete faith and you have a vision of them growing through and to their adulthood with in a way that's going to evoke their best. And they're going to be in a process of self-discovery and understanding their emotions, understanding their talents, understanding their areas of opportunity or their areas that they need to focus on and improve in. And that's going to be a lifelong process for them, and that you know that, you see that, you believe in that. In order to do that, you have to have that for yourself. We can't give what we don't have. So in order to have a healthy vision of your youth, you're going to have to believe in yourself. And you're here listening to this presentation because you're a caring parent. So if you're a caring parent and you're doing your best and you're looking for resources, that's fabulous. And so maybe you get to feel good about who you are and know that things can move forward in a successful way. What I would add is that we all get frustrated and we all struggle and we all get pissed off and parent imperfectly. You do, I do. That's the nature of the beast. But if we're into a pattern of constantly responding to negatives with negatives, then we should ask ourselves the question, what is this pattern and what can be done to shift out of this pattern? And I'm going to tell you it has something to do with believing that I can just show up with and I can say, okay, I'm not going to get angry anymore. I'm not going to overreact. I'm going to let my child or my teenagers or even my young adults' behavior belong to them. I'm not going to over-respond. Their disrespect, their oppositionalism is going to belong to them. And the privileges will come when they're ready to shift out of a negative attitude. I'm going to stay positive and I'm going to believe in them. Sometimes we're going to need to let them fail. Sometimes they're going to have to learn from experience. But they're the ones that are learning and growing and being themselves. And what we're just the parents. And we can only do what we can do. And if we do it with our best, I think that you can begin to think that you're going to have a good outcome. So are you engaging in the mental health behaviors that you need to do for yourself? Are you taking time for yourself? Are you getting the exercise that you need? Are you getting the emotional support and the connectedness that you need in your life? You need it and you deserve it. So that's my message for today. I would like to open this up to questions and see what this brings up for you and what I might have missed. In the meantime, you can always sign up for my weekly email and my podcast. You can come to my website. There's lots of downloadable, helpful things that are there for you. And you can grab a copy of my book, Ending the Parent-Teen Control Battle, or sign up for the course based on that book. And in any case, I'm always available to hear from you.
Thanks so much, Neil. Really appreciate that presentation. And there is one question that came in while you're presenting. Mary, if you'd like to unmute your microphone, the floor is yours.
How are you? My name is Mary Jane. Thank you so much for taking my concerns. Actually, let me go inside the house. I live around the airport in Orlando, Florida. The reason for my question is I have twins. My son, since age 3 and 10 months, he has been diagnosed with autism, ADHD, ODD. And my daughter has ADHD. I suspect she may also have a little bit of ODD, but right now they're both 8. And my daughter, since last year, is developing early on. She was diagnosed with precocious puberty. So as you can imagine, my kids are both mainstream, regular school, getting A's and doing well. But when I pick them up at school, we're rushing around going to ABA therapy or mental health therapy or other days for speech and occupational therapy. So I see that you mentioned about doing chores at home. I'm seeing about doing activities and getting involved. And this year now we're getting now involved in Cub Scouts and the Awanas Club. But again, I don't foresee any future for my kids to get away from getting mental health therapy or the therapies that they need to be able to develop. Because what I'm noticing with my son being age 8 now, he has had therapy since age 2, is that as he grows and develops, the needs keep changing and the needs are getting greater.
What needs are you referring to? What needs are getting greater?
For example, with the speech, he has mixed receptive expressive disorders. He still has issues with that, being able to be understood when he speaks,
Mm-hmm.
when he reads. Um, with this occupational therapy, having lack of coordination as well as fine motor skills.
Mm-hmm.
For ABA, his behavior when he gets upset, what he has been doing since the past year, he rolls into a ball in his on his chair at
Mm-hmm.
school. That's
Mm-hmm.
not socially acceptable.
Correct.
And I'm trying to get the school to let the ABA therapist, BCBA, to come to the school. We're in the process of getting the paperwork filled out, but the ABA therapy really works when the therapist is in the classroom and does it right on site, not the way the school wants to get it done is pull up my son out of class and put him in a private room so they can have a discussion. That's not the way it should really work.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
And
love
those
your
are the challenges.
yeah, I love your advocacy. I mean, it is amazing that as soon as your kid is has any kind of special need, that it really does take parental advocacy to make sure that your youth is getting the right kind of help in the school system. And you're doing a beautiful job with that. So, kudos to you.
Thank you.
And I also heard that you said that the kids have um, ODD as an oppositional defiant disorder, yet they're getting
My
A's.
son,
So,
for sure, he does have it. I suspect my daughter does, but it
okay.
could be also because of the precocious puberty. She's
Hmm.
already rolling her eyes.
Yeah.
Sometimes she expresses frustration
Sure.
and
Sure.
sighs, and that
Yeah.
could be also part of the ADHD as well.
Yeah. Of course. And I think that the idea that ODD is a diagnostic disease or an illness from the diagnostic and statistical manual is pathologizing behavior that needs to be dealt with in other ways. And if a child is or a teenager is oppositional defiant, it means that they're oppositional defiant to what? To authority. And so, if authority can be used differently, then we will find responses to the youth of the use of authority will happen differently. So, if you have a youth that is being diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, what I would say is that's a control battle, and we need to find a way to assert our authority in a way that is respectful of the child and respectful of their uh, particular needs and character, and we can recruit them into a cooperative position.
Yeah, the only concern I have is that, I have done my own version of ABA because believe it or not, I couldn't get right away the services for ABA. So I took a lot of courses myself, learning about behavior basics, about the Ruby style, and trying to work around in a positive reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement. But I agree with you on that. And my concern as a parent is that when I am no longer around and my son becomes an 18-year-old and he's on his own as an adult, will people know, or how will he be able to manage with his ODD?
Well, that's a good question, but who does that challenge belong to? And I think if you have faith and you give the message that your youth is capable of managing themselves, and you expect them to manage themselves, and you believe in them, and they're in a process of learning and growing. If we get afraid when we look at a teenager and we see how dependent they are and unprepared for the world that they are, and we go into fear, we're going to communicate that fear, and we're going to parent from a place of fear and negativity. If we can say,
Got
oh, this is
you.
process, this is, our 15-year-old's being a 15-year-old. They're not being a 25-year-old, they're being a 15-year-old. And so when they're 25, they're going to be just fine. And at 15, they're presenting normal 15-year-old problems, or their
Got you.
unique version of 15-year-old problems.
Yeah, that's
So
true. You have to keep the age. You're correct on that end.
yeah, just have faith in them, and when you have faith in them, and you're setting limits, and you're giving them resources, and you're investing in them, and you have faith in them, they will use those resources, and they'll continue learning and growing. But we can't expect a 15-year-old to be an adult, because they're not.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for your
One thing I
questions.
wanted to share, I am both my kids being 8 years old, I'm working on self-advocacy for them,
Yeah,
self-acceptance
beautiful.
of what they have. And funny enough, my son told me ADHD during behavioral therapy. And then he asked me, Mommy, what do you have? He asked me that question.
Yeah,
And I said, David, I have everything.
yeah,
And
right.
but it's not what you have, it's what you do with what you got. That's what's
Beautiful.
gonna be the most important thing. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
that.
much.
Beautiful.
Thanks so much, Mary. Uh, Katrina, you're on mute. Do you want to say?
Yeah, no, I had, I was getting too much background noise from the four-legged participant in the webinar. Um, I'm just going to jump in and share that do please have hope, because I have personally lived through your journey. My son was diagnosed with opposite defiant disorder at 3, and he's now 20.
Uh-huh.
And he is adulting very well. I mean, he's got room to grow, but they will, their peers and their external world, I think, also plays a role in teaching them. And so do have hope. I thought I might never get here, and here we are. So I want to encourage you there. But I, especially with ODD, I had a question for Neil as well. And I had a recent text exchange with my son where he felt that the right response to me was respect is a two-way street, which I have, of course, believe wholeheartedly. And I think maybe that's part of the challenge is there's a hierarchical parenting style that kind of steals some of that mutual respect. In this case, it was us having some parental concern that a financial matter wasn't being handled in a timely fashion. But Neil, can you, are there ways in which parents can do a better job of showing the kids that that while they expect and feel like they deserve respect themselves, that the kids do also, and how to show that respect to the children?
Well, you're saying it very well, Katrina, which is that respect is actually in us. Like kids will say, "I only respect teachers that I like. I only respect teachers that are cool, or I only respect teachers that respect me." But respect is an attitude that we have to adopt for ourselves. And do we have respect for others? Do we have respect for others in general? And if we adopt that for ourselves, that will include babies, children, people who are different from us, people who look different from us, people who act differently, people who believe differently, animals. We will be respectful towards others. To your four-legged co-presenter, if we adopt respect as a value and an attitude, that's then we're role modeling it for our kids, and it creates an environment that is much safer for them to be respectful back to us and to other authority figures, as well as their peers and their four-legged friends and others. I think it's such an important thing, and then whether our kid is being respectful or disrespectful towards us, if we respond to it in a respectful way. For instance, your kid says, "Go to hell, I'm not going to do that." And if we respond with, "You don't get to talk to me like that," well, they just did, so they do get to talk to you like that. What if instead we say, "Wow, you're really having a hard time with your attitude right now. I see that you're really upset about things. I'd like you to think about how you could communicate that to me differently." And then let it go and let it be and go on to the next thing. Then it's not going to be so scary for that youth to change their response to a healthier and better response. We've started by validating their feelings. "Oh, I see you're really upset. I wonder if you could communicate that somewhat differently."
That was great, Neil. Thank you. And kind of related to this is, I think anyone who's a helpful parent, and when they're younger, you really are telling them how to tie their shoe, or showing, you're doing so much more for them. But if you've got a kid with ODD, and especially even if they're not ODD but they're hitting their tween and teen years, they're seeking more and more autonomy. So how can you structure a problem-solving conversation where you really get out of the dictating mode into the supportive coaching, I guess, mode? Thoughts about how to structure those conversations so that you can get the kid owning the solution more?
I think it comes, not necessarily by taking the behavior on directly. Sometimes it comes indirectly by with just a different kind of engagement. What if your youth who's being disrespectful and oppositional also has an interest in a certain kind of music? And what if you ask them to teach you about that music? Who's doing what, and what's cool, what's in, what's not, and you listened with them, or you participate in some activity, or they're wanting to get on their game and play their computer games with their friends, and you'll say, "Hey, help me understand that. I don't even know how to do any of that stuff. Why don't you show me what that's all about, so I can understand what is fun and what skills you're using for that." And then be a little awed by it and connected by it, fool around with it, laugh. One of the characteristics that kids all say they want to see in parents that makes them feel the best is a sense of humor. So if parents can be a little goofy and goof around and not take things so seriously, it'll take some of the steam out of oppositional negative behavior with a kid. When kids are being oppositional, they're really struggling. I don't think it's necessarily all just about wanting independence. I think it's about being confused about how to be and who to be in the world. Very often there's a certain level of grief that they've lost their childhoods, and they're not able to get the same fun out of doing stupid kid things anymore. And that's not fun for them. And they haven't learned how to be successful in the next level of world of young adults and older teens. And so they're kind of just in between, and they're just struggling with who to be and how to be in the world. And if we have a certain kind of empathy for that and an appreciation for that, it'll take the bite out of it. Is that mine? Oh my goodness, I did not turn my phone off. So, I think that there's all these opportunities for going positive in the face of negative. And when you're going positive in the face of negative, it invariably is an invitation for others to join you there. Even that difficult kid of yours. Yes, you do need to set limits. And you can set the limits, but the limits are, if you just are really clear. When you're acting in a certain way, it's really hard to get your phone away from you, when you're unwilling to do your homework, well, the privileges go away. That's all there is to it. And I'm not doing this to you. Those are choices you're making, and that's how the world works. You make a certain kind of choice, and you reap the benefits and the lack of benefits from those choices that you make. And that's okay. And doesn't mean that you're not going to have privileges ever. It just means that you've lost them for now. And so that's a reasonable thing to do, but we're not doing it to them. We're not threatening to do it. We're not doing it to punish them. It's just the way the world works. Here's the standard. When you meet the standard, the privileges come. You don't meet the standard, the privileges go away.
Well, thanks so much, Neil. I think we're going to transition. As we transition here, I actually have one prompt that I hope that maybe you could speak to briefly, and then turn it over to Petrina as well. But, in your presentation, you talked about having a whole kid approach of being connected, confident, and healthy. And, as thinking about the work that YouROK is doing, I'm wondering what role does or can technology play in that approach? And yeah, if you could speak to it briefly, and then maybe Petrina could take it from there.
Well, I think it's a fabulous opportunity and a brilliant one that Petrina has landed on. That kids want to be able to talk and have their feelings acknowledged, and now and they're so involved in their phones that now they have a place to both talk about their feelings and use their device and have it. And have feelings, have language for feelings, have words for feelings, have options for naming and rating feelings, and talking about themselves, and doing it in a way that feels safe and familiar. And it's a way that parents can know about what's going on with their kids when their kids are not communicative or unwilling to share, or feeling they're private, needing to be more private, but they can at least get a window into what's going on in a way that the kid is comfortable with, parents are comfortable with, and it could be reassuring as well as alerting when necessary. So I think it's a fabulous idea and a fabulous resource, and I assume it's working well for lots of folks at this point.
Yeah, no, we certainly have seen that. Really, unlike, it's not their game console game or mobile app. It's not their PC, game. You can really just get on for a few minutes and get a mood boost from the things that these are all evidence-informed interventions that we've gamified, so that they don't feel like homework, which is what a lot of the some of the digitization of mental health care into apps. It's really just taking a structured interview approach and putting into a homework assignment in an app. And it's not, very engaging. It just feels like you're in a doctor's office on your phone. Whereas what we've done with the app Kbro is to actually make them want to go there. And it's a safe, really safe place for them to start to express their feelings, and work through what are they even feeling, because sometimes they can't answer you what's wrong because they haven't figured it out for themselves. And so the features within the app are designed to do that. So let me just say a few more highlights. I think I've touched on the fact that this is a virtual safe place. And really all the evidence-informed interventions are really designed to help them figure out how to resolve things on their own and build their self-determination, but also through our alerts, not only let them know that this is more serious than they think and they really need to reach out to someone they trust. And hopefully that's always going to be you as the parents to do that, which is part of why we created the parent portal, to provide you support to have ideas on how to new tricks to try with parenting, conversation starter tips, so that you can ask something other than how was your day and get the quintessential answer fine and the conversation is over. So trying to support you and building that connection that Neil has so beautifully expounded upon during the call today. So I think I've kind of touched on all of those things. If you'll just bring up the next slide, Jacob. This is kind of our brag slide. We're so excited with the industry validation that YouROK has received, winning the Impact Award from the American Psychiatric Association, as well as other prestigious conferences that we've been invited to present at. But more importantly, what the kids say about playing the game. And this is actually some of the things that's been learned in the evaluation of digital mental health apps. It's kind of like Advil or antibiotics. It's not Call of Duty, which is oftentimes considered addictive. We're giving you, a dose of mental health support to treat a emotional headache, if you will, or if it's more serious, especially in the teen years, if there's breakups or, a really difficult relationship with the teacher, maybe you're on, several times a week or more, working through those issues. But the kids are finding that it's a safe place for them to feel better about themselves and working through their emotions in the KBRO app. Next slide, Jacob. So we just invite you. We'll be the parent portal is shortly heading into QA, and we expect it to be ready with another few weeks. And so for those of you who might be interested in this, we do invite you to just sign up to be on the list, to be notified when it becomes available. And in doing so, you'll get a 50% discount off a 6-month subscription of the parent portal. We also want to continue to support parents through continuing this dialogue. And we have a parenting support group on Facebook and this video will become available, and there'll be a follow-up email that has this link so you can join in the group. And please, there's other parents in there. This is a great place to ask questions of how other parents are handling things. I think I missed deleting a sentence from our last webinar. Terry did respond to some questions that came up from our last webinar. And so you'll see her answers there. And then also, please, one of the things that we're offering, because kids are struggling so much right now because of the aftermath of the pandemic, we're really trying to get this solution into the hands of as many kids as possible. So we do have a revenue sharing opportunity for parent-teacher associations. We will share a percentage of our sales with the Parent-Teacher Association as a revenue generation activity for the organization, which usually is asking you to fund it in some fashion. And then also, please let your school boards, superintendents, or principals know about what we're doing. We've launched in the 8th largest school district in the US, in Tampa, and we're finding that kids are struggling, and we're identifying who they are, and we're matching them either with social workers because it's that kind of an issue, or with a therapist if they need someone to talk to. So we really want to have a positive impact on all the heartache and difficulties that kids have been dealing with, even before the pandemic hit, but especially as we recover from the aftermath of the pandemic. So please help us get the word out, because we are a mission-driven organization, really wanting to make sure no parent ever goes through some of the challenges I dealt with raising my child. And I'm happy to report he's thriving, and he's at college, he's got an internship, and he's on his esports team. So you can get to the other side, and the things that we use in our family to get there inspired the app K-Bro. So that's all I have. Neil or Jacob, any final comments you want to add?
Neil? Oh, your mic is muted.
It was a pleasure being here and being part of YouROK, YouROK, and I'm really glad to help parents connect with YouROK, and I'm really glad that they're up for my message. And anytime you want to come over to my website, there's lots there for you. neildbrown.com.
Well, thanks so much, Neil. Really appreciate your time this afternoon. And Patrina, thank you as well. And for the participants and those that will be watching this webinar on video, please do take advantage of the resources that are offered and look for more from YouROK in terms of webinars and other resources and opportunities to engage coming up. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.